My mentor has written a lot of sports books, and when I first came to him with the Giannis idea, he did not think it was a good idea. He was like, he's too young,
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. He hasn't even won a first MVP. Like, this is he's too young, right? And I
Hmm.
was like, oh yeah, you have a point. Biographies are usually written about people that are 60 and up or dead. So I was like, well, 25, 24, a little young. Um, but then with Hakeem, he's lived a full life, so there is a challenge of there's so much there.
Right.
Where do you even start? Giannis, there was a challenge of he was in his contract year and they weren't sure if he was going to stay with the Bucks or not. And so it was very hard to get former teammates who are and coaches with different teams because the Bucks were afraid that it would look like tampering.
I
Which
see.
again, I'm asking like such like innocent questions from like, in 2014 he was so scrawny. Tell me about young Giannis. Like it's definitely not tampering. Like it's definitely has nothing to do with like his next destination. But that presented some challenges. The other thing was it happened during COVID. So I got back from Milwaukee and a couple days later the NBA and then the Bucks came to LA where I live to play and I did some more interviews and then the world shut down. So that was really tough. Hakeem presented a different challenge. I thought, well, it's going to be easier than the first book because everyone I want to talk to is retired. There's going to be no tampering here. And turns out a lot of people, it's very hard for them to think of specific memories because they're older.
Right.
So memory is a faulty thing. And so you were kind of dealing with both of those. And as you know, in the book, so many people that I interviewed from Bill Walton to Jerry West passed away. And so there felt like this urgency, like I got to talk to these people, in
Right.
case something happens. And so they each presented their unique challenges. The last thing I'll say is that if you're going to write a nostalgic book, like this is a nostalgic book, you've got to bring it to the present. You've got to make people care about it right now, like you said, in the way that people cared about Giannis and the title. So I had to really show that it's not just his story that is important and interesting, which it is. It's that he created the current landscape that we live in. Positionless basketball dominated by African superstars. Hakeem is all over that. And nobody has ever linked the two, but this book really seeks to show that like he created this world, he inspired generations.
Yeah, no, I think that's really right, and I think in some ways, like, it's really an important book because, people will sometimes, like, put Hakeem in, like, top 10 lists, but almost as, like, an afterthought because he's not, he was always overshadowed by Jordan as a player, and it's just, like, there's for all these reasons, but he was so important to the development of the game and especially the international growth of the game, which, as you said, is, like, the defining feature of the modern NBA, so it's, like, impossible to talk about that without, talking about him. I wanted to talk a little bit about Giannis because of what you just said, that it's like, you know, you're writing a biography of somebody who's like 25 and now he's almost 30, I think. And so it's been a couple years and the story has
Yeah.
sort of changed. And like, you know, I think a lot of people when your book came out, and myself included, I thought like we were on the cusp of like a Bucks dynasty and like
Right.
Giannis was going to like dominate the next few years of the league.
Yeah.
Obviously, it hasn't worked out that way. They've been through a few coaches. They haven't been back to the conference finals. Then last year he gets hurt at the end of the season and watches like Drew Holiday win a ring in Boston. So where do you think like we're at with the like Antetokounmpo story? Like, what is your read on like how the story has changed since your book came out?
God, that's such a smart question. Nobody has asked me that. That's so real. In fact, like, all my LA family became Bucks fans and now they're like, what the heck is going on? And
Yeah.
I'm like, now you know what people in Milwaukee have been feeling for decades, guys. Like it
Yeah.
sucks being a Bucks fan. Um, yeah, well, let's talk about off the court first. I have seen there's a part in the book where it talks about how Giannis has really said very little about race and speaking up. And that is very hard for other Black Greek people that are still in Greece that do not have citizenship, that have a really hard time getting any opportunities that Giannis has. I've seen him grow in that he is speaking up more. That's been really cool to see. And now that we see him sort of getting into ownership and stuff, I really think like his biggest impact is going to be off the floor. Like in 20 years, we're going to look back. Like I can totally see him becoming something incredible in politics or in just in the world. So I don't know what that is, but I don't know. I have this feeling that like his greatness is going to go so beyond basketball. But the weird part is that it felt like, and it feels like every single year, there's the same narrative of the ticking time bomb. When is Giannis going to leave? I
Yeah.
feel that now more than ever. That sounds really weird because that was such a prevalent thing as I was working on my book or leading up to my book. Um, I just cannot see him staying with just one title. But I
Yeah.
just don't know if it's with the Bucks. I don't know. I don't know. I think it's interesting that he made a comment, about Tim Duncan saying like, "Man, I admire Tim Duncan. I wanna retire and have nobody just know where I am and be off the face of the earth." So, maybe he is content there and is just whether they win or lose ever again, he's just gonna kind of be content? I don't know. I don't know. But I know the Bucks better get it together because I now have newly Bucks fans in my life, and they're, like, asking me for answers. I'm like, "I don't know what Dame is doing. I don't know what
Yeah.
their career has been like."
No, and it's something where, it's such a different team than it was just a couple years ago, and
Yeah,
and it seems like they just put all their eggs in this Lillard basket, and
right,
who knows if that's really working out. I guess it didn't work out in year 1 at least, but so who knows
right.
what the future is
It
gonna
could.
be.
It
Yeah.
could. I really like Dame. I really do. I He's somebody I've wanted to profile for, like, forever.